Go. And just to remember the benefits from Dale Marie's karakia this morning as we do our job. Awesome. Apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Montgomery and also Councillor Pettit. And thank you. Seconder. Thanks, Lou. All in favour? Contrary, no. That's carried. Disclosure of members' interests.
Yes, I have a disclosure and I'll leave the room. Thank you.
The liquor ban. Yep. So there will be that. Thank you. We don't need a motion for that, do we?
No.
No. Late items. There are none. So confirmation of order of meeting. No changes there. Thanks, Bruce. Seconder. Thanks, Marcus. All in favour? Aye. Contrary, no. It's carried. Confirmation of minutes from 21 May. They've been pre-circulated. And
just a minor query on page 11.
page 11. Yes.
If you look in point C, that right at the top, it says delegate authority to the Chief Finance Officer.
Right.
But actually further down in the next item, it talks about delegates to the Chief Financial Officer. Yeah, it is. I know.
The financial is in a resolution. Oh, they both are. Yes, you're quite right.
Yeah.
Just we've changed that to
Yeah.
financial. Yeah.
We can't change it.
Oh, we can't.
No, no.
Oh, we can't. Okay. Well, I mean, I think we know who we're talking about. Yeah. Okay, but thanks. Nothing else? I'll let you second. Lou's already moved. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll put the motion. All in favour? Yeah. Contrary, no. That is carried. Okay, we're moving on to the finance report for period ended 30 June 2025. We don't normally do this, but James suggested that it's a good idea and you know, so I'm very much in favour of it. James, would you like to introduce or?
Yeah. I'll just wait for Nada to take a seat. So this is our 12-month report, the financial report. Usually we do a 4 and an 8-month report, and this 12-month report obviously comes in advance of our annual report audit. So, but we're just very, very conscious that councillors had asked over the last couple of months to see what the year end looked like. So these numbers are 99% finalised and just awaiting audit sign off. So I'll hand over to Nada if everyone's comfortable with that.
Welcome, Nada. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So yes, we have the end of year results. Looking at our actuals to forecast. We ended up with a 15.5 operating deficit at the end of June. Contributing to that was the non-cash asset write-offs of 28 million, which pretty much takes care of that. We also had development contributions that were down 2.5 million from what we were expected to get in. We had the 1.4 million through formal application that was accepted. That's been deferred to 25-26. We also had another 1.2 million from C1 development that hasn't come in. What else? We ended with a cash surplus of 1.2 million. So that is made up of, we had some additional growth that you'd be able to see in the Combank statement on page, hang on, I'll skip that for you. On page, I think it might be 81, the agenda, page 10 of my report. And there was also in that some recycling that we had rated that was overspent in 23-24 rated for this year. So then that's been put back. Also, I wanted to point out on page 6 of my report, 20 of your agenda, I think, with the CapEx delivery. We finished with community facilities in the growth being over the KPI goal. That was due to the growth in C1, C2 reserves that had exceeded due to the carry forwards in 23-24. I just also want to point out on page 7, sorry, we're jumping around a bit here. In the other revenue analysis, there's subsidies and grants, and in the actual, we've got 13.5 million, but down in the Compinc report, it's 18. It should actually be 18 in the revenue analysis as well. And we had to move 4 million of asset sales where the budget's sitting for those. So that's an error. And I'll take the rest of the report as being read. And any questions?
Thanks. Did you want to make a comment now, James? Then I'll take questions.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, a little bit confusing with those the write-offs in terms of those accounting, the accounting adjustments. And I know we're all well familiar with what those are, but I think the positive thing to take away is the cash surplus. Those are cash transactions. So if you think of our operating income versus expenditure, we're actually forecasting a deficit right up to the end. So yeah, there's a few things that have come through, including the increased growth. Very promising, the increase in growth we had forecast for the current year, 0.8. And we've obviously adjusted that during the periods, but we know that that's a key driver of our long-term plan going forward. And in our first 3 years, we're forecasting 0.8. So we're starting with a higher rateable base in 25-26 than we had assumed, that's positive. So there's a few positive things going on here. Obviously a little bit more debt headroom than we thought because we've been a little bit slower on the CapEx spend, but I've got to be honest, in all the councils I've worked at, 85% is pretty good. So that's a good reflection on the capital team, I have to be honest there. Big capital programs this year and next year, and so obviously we'll keep on top of that. And I mean, things are quite tough out there for some of the developers and the likes at the moment, so we are working very proactively there to manage the timing of the DC revenue collection. That's probably all I had to add, if that's okay.
Okay, thanks, James. Roger.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nat. Just a couple of questions. Really interesting, as you mentioned, about the developers who have deferred the payment of their DCs. Did you say that there were 2 of the developers, one at 1.4 and the other at 1.2? So it's a total of 2.6 deferral. When we respond to a deferral like that, do we put a time on the expected payment, or are they offering a time? How do we set an end to that deferral?
I know with the 1.4, so there is a time on that. It's expected to come into this financial year, the 25-26. The 1.2, I'm not sure of. I think that's still being worked through with the growth team and legal at this stage.
Yeah, good. And then on your page 11 of 14, see on the prior page, you do mention what some of the variations are that are in the block above, in the chart above. And when we look on the page 11 and we've got the revenue and expenditure page, there are a number of the expenditures where the expenditure is over 100% above what the budget was. I'd have thought that we may have had some explanation as to why, particularly in these times of tight financial management, why they're actually over 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have my. You mean they're over 100%? They're not 100% over. There's quite a difference.
They're over 100%. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think basically in the report we are just looking, commenting on the overall Compank expenses, which will then flow into the activities. But if you want further detail going forward, I can break that down.
Okay, that'd be lovely. And then finally, on page 7, and the block, the big block at the bottom of the page, where it's got development contribution revenue, and it's got a line of 11,314 actual, 13,847 forecast, and 16, etc. budget. But then if we go on to the chart where you've got development contributions on page 10, and if you look at the development contributions there on actual forecast and budget, they don't match. So the one in that detailed financial
Yep.
doesn't match with the
So-
ones in the graph.
Yep, so with those, we also include the reserve contribution, so it's the development and the reserve.
Got you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Clear.
Just on that, so which one includes the reserve contributions? The
Graph.
the graph that's
Yeah.
on page,
Yeah.
page 7.
The 11 and the 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it'd be good if the heading was changed then, so we know that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, okay. I've got some other
Clear,
questions.
yes.
Firstly, I'm interested in the cash surplus and all the things that contribute to it. So you mentioned, or the different contributions. So James, you mentioned that the increased receipts from the growth, yeah, was one of them. Yeah, like how much of it was accounted for, would you say, from the increase in gross? And then what other contributions were there?
Yeah, so that's quite difficult to break down because it's the growth in the rating base. So that obviously doesn't all happen at one point. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's fair probably over the last couple of meetings we've had, we've been indicating 0.8, 0.91. So you're taking like fractions of it, but it's going to be somewhere in that probably 300 to 500,000 range. That would be that portion of it. The recycling cost obviously is a general rate as well, the overcollection, so that will go back into your overall cash surplus. Off the top of your head, Nada, do you know the exact amount on that?
I think it was approximately 800,000.
So that pretty much accounts. for
Pretty
the
much,
surplus.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Those are the two main items. And because they're in the cash surplus, they are general rate items, right?
And it's good to understand what they contributed so that, you know, it's not like we had formulas wrong and things like that. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah, I'm always very interested in.
Can I just jump in there on this item? So that point 6 extra growth, that will flow through this year, the current year's rating as an increase as well, won't it?
That's correct. But just once again, and I don't want to overcomplicate this, is as we've readjusted our forecast and worked through the LTP process, as the rates have grown in the rating base, we've been adding those into the LTP. So you're right that the increase in starting point will be 1.4% higher than what we said at the beginning of the 24-25 annual plan, the annual plan, right? So yeah, we've accounted for, and you suddenly don't have a spare $1.5 million because we've been adding it over time. If that was the gist of the question, which I think it might have been.
Not really. I know there's ups and downs and stuff, but it's nice to know that there's a little bit extra. And Steph, welcome. Nice to see you join the meeting.
Can I carry on with my questions then? Okay, so then my next question is to do with the compliance monitoring on page 4. And it's because we have on that page net interest cost divided by total rates, and the policy limit there is 30%. And then if you go diagonally down, you've got net interest to total revenue, and that policy limit is 20%. And then when you read the pre-election report, Okay, there's also a metric in there, all right, that limits interest to 15%. So I'm confused about all those different metrics, where they come from and which is the one that we actually have to keep our eye on.
I agree, it's confusing, Claire. Those two you particularly point out on page 4, they're different measures of liquidity for debt servicing. So for example, the rates piece, as you'll notice that's higher than the debt servicing benchmark because it only includes rates, whereas the other piece will be things like rates, fees and charges and the like. So this is quite a common banking thing where it's different layers of liquidity. So that's what we have to maintain for LGFA.
So both of them come from LGFA, basically. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. And I'd also just like to point out that in the introduction or the first part of this financial report, where you've got those headline figures, I'd really appreciate it if the budget figure was defined because, you know, you've got actuals and you've got the forecast and then you've got budget at the side and there's no explanation as to how they relate to each other. I presume budget is what we started off with at the beginning of the year. Yeah. But I mean, it'd be good if we had that extra information so we understand the labeling. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of other people too that are struggling with, you know, all the different things in the financial thing. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Just in response to that, yeah, so the budget is what's set. And then the forecast is the movements that we do during the year from 4 and 8 month reports. So yeah, which then becomes forecast because we can't, once budget's set, we can't touch budget. So
Yeah, the forecast reflects operational delivery over time, right? Based on external operating environment, whereas the budget, it's almost like a balance sheet, right? It's a point set at time where we think we're going to do this and then we start operating. So that's the key distinction between those two items.
Yeah, I think so. But it's also how you interpret it because like for instance, the DC collection, the budget figure was a lot higher and then it was forecast down.
yeah, it's
And now you're
also,
saying-
yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. And now we're saying, oh, we only missed it by a little bit. But if actually looked at it from what we were hoping at the beginning of the year, it's a lot lower. So, and you know, I do wonder what impact that might have overall. Yeah. So, obviously this is, you know, it's an evolving thing. Yeah. We're trying to improve our reporting and things like that. But yeah.
But that is why the budget figure's always there, so that we know that's what we started.
Yeah.
Forecasts come after.
Yeah, so I think it'd be good if it was defined, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So another question I had was about the rate status. So that's on page 8 of your report or page 22 of our agenda. And that is that I have asked previously for a trend, you know, like the rates for that are in arrears, the number of properties from the previous financial report we had so that we can see whether or not that the actual properties increase or decreasing. It's not simply the dollars, but it gives an indication as to, yeah, how many people are struggling. And I'd really appreciate that, both for the rates and for the water as well.
Yeah, so we have been adding that in, but due to we haven't done a June one before, so we don't have the comparison.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so down in
The waters one as well.
the status reports,
Yeah.
are the number of properties.
Yeah, and so it looks like the waters ones have been increasing, yeah. And I was quite interested to know whether or not there's a pattern on whether or not they're urban properties or rural properties or high users, low users, that kind of thing. Yeah, but I'm not saying that I want a definitive answer today or whatever, but I just thought it might be quite useful going forward if we, yeah, understand the type of property, yeah, in terms of which zone it's in and stuff like that. But
Okay,
okay,
yep, I can ask.
Yeah, just on that, Mike asked me about rates and he had a perception that they were,
10 and 1%.
but they're actually,
Oh, they're pretty close.
they're actually very comparable with
Yeah.
the previous year. There's no
Yes, they
real,
are. Yeah. that's
no real
right.
change. In fact,
Right.
water rates are, the total's lower this year than last. So I think he should be quite
Yeah.
comfortable with that.
Will you indulge me with just two more questions?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, councillor Clare,
yeah.
can I just ask you, answer one of your questions earlier is, in terms of, the urban versus rural properties for water charges,
That were in arrears. It's
Yeah.
really just to see whether or not
It's-
yeah,
it's only going to be urban because rural,
yeah, most of them don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
it is,
not
it
connected.
is, it
Not
is for
connected.
water charges, but for
Yeah,
rates.
for rates. Yeah,
it
it's a
would
fair
be-
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Yeah, okay. And I was interested to know why the water rates collected was, so this is on page 10 of the report. We're over budget or over forecast by 965,000. Was that? When's that? Oh, sorry, I think that, I'm trying to, yes, so that's the second note on page 10. Fees and charges revenue is 2.4 million higher than forecast. And one of the key things was that the water rates collected was more increased by 965,000, which seems to be a big over collection. Yeah. Or was it a reclassification? Yeah.
It's just based on volume, I would imagine.
So,
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look more into the breakdown.
It's, yeah, because usually when we've got a budget variance, it shows up on that chart above, you know, in those two columns that are close to the right-hand side. And so if I thought, because I thought if it was a dry summer and lots of people were watering their gardens, that increased our water rates collected, I would have thought it would have showed up in our previous 4-monthly report. That's all.
It could
Yeah.
possibly, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it is, but it could possibly be due to also the growth. So we're getting more rates coming
yeah.
in, so we'll be getting more water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, two things impact on this,
Yeah.
number of users
Yeah,
and volume.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's so that would be it because we do set it through the fees and charges.
yeah,
Potentially could have also set the fee higher based on usage, right?
yeah.
But we don't know that until you actually recoup it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, we had a big discussion
Yeah.
about it when we decided to put in water meters. Yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about it a lot. Yeah, okay, no, that's cool. That's cool. I just wanted to
Good,
understand.
good
it a bit more.
questions that had us thinking, I think.
Yeah, and my last question is about the pensioner housing, because there's more in the operating income by about 115%. And then there's, I think that's on page 25. Yeah, so you've got an over collection of 115% for pensioner housing. And then in the expenditure, there's also an over. And so, yeah, where did the extra money come from the revenue? Because I wasn't expecting that. We sort of managed that activity pretty much, yeah, on a shoestring. Yeah, so.
This also helps to answer Councillor Gordon's earlier question because the majority of what he asked about the overexpense, if you look at the big numbers, it's in those areas. Because most of them are pretty comparable, but they're between 90 and 103%, right? But the big numbers are some of the housing stuff. So we'll follow up on the answer to that. We've actually, David Varco will be in later on, so he might be able to answer that
Excellent.
question. So, but off the top of their head, I wouldn't be able to answer. But the fact that there's a correlation between income and costs in our policy around pension houses is both those things have to offset. I think there's a really valid answer there, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
but someone
yeah.
will know it
Yeah.
who's involved.
No, cool. No, thank you very much. That's me.
Okay, thanks, Claire.
Appreciate that.
We'll come back to you on that one and the rest of the councillors.
Bruce?
No, just on the average interest rate for external borrowings, is that 4.42% relate to what the DC's deferral one, that what they pay on what's owing? You know,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah,
I just did, yep.
So the way it will work is wherever we've deferred the collection of that DC in the agreement we've entered into,
Right.
is wherever that sits and the funding is we fund it all at the same rate, which is our average interest cost, the cost that it costs council to borrow, they will fund that. Otherwise, it's unfair on future developers, right? Because you're just going to keep capitalising it while we wait for the payment to come in, right? Does that make sense?
David, you've got a contribution to make about the pensioner housing, please. Oh, sorry, Claire, do you want to, it's about the we've collected more rental revenue than budgeted and also spent more than budgeted. And there was a thought that you might have some clues about that, or, but if you need to research,
Yeah.
that's fine as well.
Through the chair, I can make it go. I can make it go. As you know, with pensioner housing, we do have some that don't stay as long as they wish to. And when they depart, we then look at the length of time that that unit hasn't been renovated. So those renovations can increase in cost and due to the complexity of it, new bathroom, new kitchen and likes, if you've had somebody in there for 15, 20 years. Whilst that work program is on, that can be lower income. What we've seen this year is that the asset is getting better and better and better. So the length of time that those units aren't unoccupied through renovation enables us to get a more stable revenue collection.
Awesome.
News story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and I've just got one final thing for you, Nada. 28 million write-down in assets is quite a chunk, about 1% of the total. And I know how complicated the whole asset thing is. It's massively complicated, to put it mildly. But are we feeling that, our value, that they're in good shape now? We're not, will we see a continuation of this happening on this kind of scale, or am I asking the wrong person? And I probably am. I know it's, but.
I think this is something that we're focusing on going forward, that it's done more regularly, so it's not such a, but I think when you look at terms of our value of asset compared to the 28 million, it sounds high, but in retrospect, it's not a lot compared to the whole portfolio.
No.
Yeah, and there was a lot of anomalies, I guess you'd call them this time.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Look, I know there's a lot of work being done on our assets over the whole time I've been in council here, and we certainly don't want to be carrying assets on our books that are not at the right value or in fact in good use. So it was just I was just a little curious. So that's fine.
There's another issue here as well, is what do we know that's happened in our assets is the valuation and infrastructure costs are so high, inflationary, right? Is so when we go to write assets off, we write them off at a higher value.
Yeah, hadn't thought of that.
So it's, I'm going to acknowledge Yolanda for coming with that one because she just messaged me that. So well done, Yolanda. And then we revalue our assets every 2 years on the infrastructure side, right, Nada? So that necessitates a cleanup.
Excellent. Okay, well, if there's no further questions, I'll go to the recommendation on page 15. And thanks, Roger. And a seconder, please. Thanks, Bruce. All in favour? Contrary, no. That's carried. Thank you, Nada. That was, good work. All right. Item 7 is new community lease for the Cambridge and District Senior Citizens Association.
Kia ora, good afternoon. My first report today seeks the committee's approval to enter into a new lease agreement with the Cambridge and District Senior Citizens Association. Now, this is the building that's located behind the Cambridge Museum on the Millisich Place development there. The proposed lease is intended to formalise the ongoing occupation and support the continued delivery of the community services offered by the group, noting that the building is owned by the Senior Citizens Group and not by council. I'm happy to take the rest of my report as read and answer any questions.
Liz.
Yeah, no, thank you, Angela. Another one about to be ticked off, so that's great news. Hey, I just had a question about the car parks outside the senior citizens hall. So it looks like there's 5 or 6 that are included in their lease. So do they have to maintain that as well, or do we just kind of do it when we're doing the larger car park?
Yeah, I think we'd probably do that as part of the larger car park, but it
Yeah.
just gives them a little bit of just a bit of space there. And that space is quite often too used for the mobile breast screening clinic when they come along.
Yes.
So it's just quite handy to have that kind of under their control.
Yeah, I thought, because it would probably be a bit unfair, because I do know those car parks get used a lot by other groups. And in fact, Claire and I were there on the weekend in that hall, and it's looking actually really good. I was, quite impressed at how they have maintained it and everything. So, look, and I'm happy to move the recommendation after rest of the
Good.
questions.
And Dale Marie, you seconding? Happy. All good. Awesome. Any other discussion? No? All in favour? Contrary, no. It's carried. Item 8 is BMX Club.
Yeah, my second report today is seeking the committee's approval to grant the renewal of the lease to the Cambridge BMX Club, and they're located on Lamb Street in Leamington. They've exercised their right of renewal in accordance with the terms of the current lease, and we believe they've met all their obligations under their current lease, and also a resource consent, because they do have a resource consent attached to their lease there. The proposed renewal is for the final term of this lease, which is for another 15 years. And happy to take questions.
So I'll have a mover, which is fine. And the seconder, no? Question? Liz has a question, so
Look,
before I put the motion.
Judy Bannon would
Oh,
just not be happy if I didn't say something about this. So just a question around, there's obviously a number of residents that live close to the BMX Club. Have we had many complaints and things like that over the last few years? Because it started off with a little bit of a, there was some concerns from residents around that. But I believe that actually it's settled down, and residents are quite happy working with the BMX Club. Is that the case?
Yeah, since my time here, which is coming up for 3 years now, I've not had a single complaint come my way. And attached to their renewal application, they did actually attach a couple of letters from the neighbouring properties in support. In hindsight, I probably should have attached them to my report, but just confirming that some of the neighbours now, I don't know if some of the ones that weren't happy before may have moved on. I'm not sure of the history, but certainly at the moment, we're not receiving any complaints.
Yeah, I saw the support. I was just checking the opposite. So no, that's great. Thank you.
Lou, yeah.
Quick question, just a question to Angela. I see you've extended the lease at 15 years, not a recurring term of 5 to 5 by 5. Okay, this is on 15 years, isn't it?
Yeah,
That is quite unusual that we lease there and a length of time like that without review. Just asking why that's done.
So this original lease was entered into 15 years ago, and it was entered into for an initial term of 15 years with one right of renewal of 15 years. It might have been prior to our community leasing policy being updated as it is today, that we're generally 5 by 5 by 5. Sorry. But also, I think they basically leased a piece of bare land that needed a real lot of, work done to get it what it is today. So possibly that would be the reason for getting their funding. Quite often, our community groups do need a bit more security to gain external funding when they're taking on these huge projects.
Thank you for that. It was just a question.
Philip.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, just following on from Liz's comments about the community and the BMX club, it's really great to see that they're all working in really well together. It's a really active club, and it brings a lot of benefit into not only our community with participants, but also people from around the North Island or coming here for competitions and things. So it's really awesome. That they're all working in really well together. So it's great, all happy families. And, with people moving into the district, buying into the district, they can see that it's there as well. It's, so they shouldn't be any surprises anyway. But, it's really good. Thank you.
Oh, Susan.
Yeah, just briefly, just adding on to the comments around the sometimes uncomplimentary issues around the noise. I understand that the BMX Club invested quite heavily in the gates that were the sort of central piece of the starter gates, was kind of the central piece of the noise. And you can imagine with those meets, there are races starting pretty frequently, and they invested quite significantly in technology that was a lot less impact to the neighbours. So no, I actually opened an event there a while back, and it was pretty impressive. Not having any BMXs myself, but in the family. But yeah, what a great gig that is.
You weren't tempted to have a go?
No, not at all tempted. No, it's
Okay.
big. It's a firm no.
All right. Thanks, Angela. That's those two reports. That's great. And I have a mover in Dale Marie and seconder in Susan. So I'll put the motion. All in favour? Contrary, no. It's carried. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Oh. Yeah. So item 9 is the temporary alcohol ban at Karapiro Domain. David. Pretty standard stuff.
Kia ora koutou.
Yeah, unless anyone's got questions for David, I will put the motion. All in favour? Contrary, no. No, carried. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Just going.